Over the expanse of time, human beings have had the tendency to mess with the innate natural cycles that have occurred since the beginning of time. Our obsession with total dominance has caused us to make certain sacrifices that were not always ours to make. One in particular has created small successes in the grand scheme of things, but was at the expense of the lives and health of all species who inhabit this planet.
In this short exposé on the effects of said sacrifice, we wish to explain to all human beings that it is time to stop releasing such ridiculous amounts of fossil fuels, so we may prevent global warming, which is contributing significantly to sea level rise.
We personally deal with the issue of sea level rise on such a deep level, having grown up in the coastal New England town of Narragansett, Rhode Island. We have heard many stories about the possibility of people to walk from here to here, which is completely impossible now due to a drastic rise in sea level in recent years.
Our entire town's livelihood is based solely on tourism due to the draw to our beach, which might not exist if we keep continuing to add to harmful emissions. It is a terrifying thought for all citizens, and not just Narragansett, but Rhode Island, which has the greatest ratio of coastline to square mile in the country and the world. We truly hope that all candidates in the 2016 presidential election will be able to recognize the capacity of change in global warming and will begin to focus heavily on what their plan is to help save the planet.
Although sea level rise may look like a scientifically simple topic, there are a few complex factors that contribute to the rise of global sea level. These include thermal expansion, or the excitement of water molecules due to heat, causing the water mass to expand, and the melting of glaciers.
We've known since Abraham Lincoln was president that when you add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, it creates a greenhouse effect that warms things up. And as you know from your science labs, the law of thermal expansion tells you when the water gets warmer, it expands. And since the bottom of the ocean isn't going anywhere, when it expands upward against the land. At the same time, the warming is melting ice in ice caps like Greenland that are on land, and so they pour into the ocean and they raise it a second way. Those are the two primary ways in which the sea level rise is being driven, and both are caused by us being irresponsible about carbon emissions.
Although a few inches of rise in global ocean levels may seem insignificant, the effects are drastic. Here is Senator Bill Nelson from Florida, Monica Pham, who is the legislative assistant in charge of environmental issues under Senator Jack Reed, and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse on the specific effects of sea level rise on our state, nation, and planet.
And so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change projects that the globe could warm 1.5 to 4.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. It also estimated that sea levels could rise from 1 foot to 3 feet over the same period.
When sea levels rise, there is more salt water in our local estuaries. Here is Monica Pham on how this affects local businesses.
The thing that's really difficult with climate change and the effects of it is the salinity increase. The salt water beginning to enter the local ecosystems like freshwater marshes. Animals and plant species are suffering, and we need to learn to adapt. And one of the things that I think is very difficult for a state like Rhode Island that is heavily dependent on its fishing industry is that there is less and less basically product for our fishermen, our lobstermen, our scallopmen, and climate change has a real strong impact in terms of biodiversity loss.
According to Sheldon Whitehouse, the economy is also affected by sea level rise.
The World Economic Forum just polled something like 700 economists and asked them what they thought the biggest economic danger was, and by a strong majority they said climate change.
Although it may not seem like it, due to the drastic effects we witness today, sea level rise and global warming are not new issues. In fact, in 1990, the United States passed the first and most influential modern environmental law called the Clean Air Act, which controlled air pollution in the general public. Unfortunately, it has been difficult to pass legislation like it since, due to the fact that when CO2 legislation is passed, big companies lose money. But citizens still propose multiple bills a year, fighting for their futures.
Up until about a month ago, it did not seem like much was happening with the discussion of sea level rise between world leaders. Although, just last month, important climate change warriors with significance from across the globe met in Paris at the COP21 Sustainable Innovation Forum to discuss climate issues that are so prominent in our lives today and possibly use their power to make a difference.
Right now is a really exciting time. We're coming off of the COP21 Paris Agreement, which was a really historic moment in terms of the United States leading the way in curbing methane, carbon, and working with the rest of the world in accomplishing our goals.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse also seemed optimistic on the prospects of the COP21 Paris Forum.
I'm cautiously optimistic after the Paris conference. It certainly didn't create the great solution to climate change, but it was a necessary step towards the solutions that we need. And as a necessary step, it was done well and strongly and with a lot of support from countries around the world and a lot of American corporate support as well, which is helpful to know.
Not all large companies are harmful to the environment. For example, ExxonMobil, the largest crude oil company, has been considering their effects on the environment by joining the climate legislation bandwagon. As a result of this, between the years 1994 and 2005, sulfur dioxide emissions dropped 29%, while carbon dioxide emissions rose 22%, mainly from power plants. Although it may appear as if all hope has been lost, we can still fight global warming by making simple changes to our day-to-day lives. For example, using public transportation, buying fuel-efficient vehicles, or even just voting for legislation in favor of stopping climate change.
And finally, to our presidential candidates, you have the power to make a change in the United States and the world's global emissions, and even save infrastructure and local gems from the rising ocean. Use it. It is important for you to educate Americans about their job to save themselves and others from the threat of sea level rise.